Yeah, of course. I'm excited.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen,
Cool.
welcome back into the Buster Show podcast. This is Kingz. Kingz, how are you, my friend?
I'm good, thank God. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be on the show, and yeah, I'm excited to spew some NFT talk.
So, first things first, obviously, for anybody that doesn't know you, you make a lot of NFT content. You have your own brand where you do a lot of that under. I wanted to start this by saying, the majority of major NFT projects are down 75% from the peak in USD. Maybe not Ethereum, but they're probably still down in ETH. But they're down 75% ish in USD, whether it's Bored Ape Yacht Club, CryptoPunks, Doodles, you name it, right?
Yeah.
What is the state of all of these projects that have had billions of dollars put into them? And do you think that they can come out of this, or is that even a thing?
So funny enough, I think that this is extremely healthy for the space, and the reason why is because still I'd say 95% of these projects don't offer anything, no utility. It's still speculative, even though they're down 75%. And I think two things happen with this. One, people wake up and realize perhaps I should invest in a company that actually has long-term potential, not just because everyone thinks, oh, this is the future. I think that it screws on the head straight on people's heads, and then in addition to that, I think that it makes these companies wake up and it puts a flame up their tuchus, so to say, or up their butt, and work a little harder. I think that a lot of these companies were bringing in millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars even, without doing much beforehand. And now, it's go time. Real, uh, real heroes or real companies are built during bear markets, and now we get to see who really is worthy, because it's tough now. It's not all shiny and exciting. So I'd say that very few will come out of this. Most will fail. And this is something that, I know that Gary Vee has been talking about for
Yep.
practically a year now. Even myself, I'd say this is no surprise to me as well. And yeah, it's the Hunger Games now.
No, it's a great point. It's going to be interesting to see who can actually execute now, because like you said, most of these projects were doing nothing. And CryptoPunks, although they didn't promise anything, so they didn't have to do anything, they literally have done nothing except eventually, sell the labs, obviously. But it's true. In the public markets, you're judged by your profits to earnings ratio and your long-term history and your dividends. And while some of those things have a comparable point in NFT world, like for example, with Yuga Labs, they did their token drop. That would be the equivalent to like a massive dividend, just like on a
Yeah.
scale that we've never seen before. And that worked out for everybody that had at that point in time. But, when you have this sort of turnover of owners, they have to continue executing on that sort of thing. Do you think the future of NFTs, in your opinion, has a place for these big projects, or is it more going to be the technology that is what matters or serves people and is of value?
I think it's a combination of both, right? I think that you have to have a reason to get an airdrop. You can't just give an airdrop and hope that it goes up in value because the demand is there. So there are multiple routes that an NFT company can go. I know that Yuga Labs decided to take the most risky, but also potentially the most profitable route, which is building their own metaverse. Um, and I think that owning it a Bored Ape, if the metaverse is successful, assuming it's successful, having a Bored Ape, you're the king of the king in that metaverse. You're like the elite of the metaverse. And I think that an airdrop of mutant apes, that also is a pretty elite situation in that metaverse. And the NFTs aspect of the metaverse that they're building is going to be huge, right? Just as important as the cryptocurrency, which is going to be the currency that runs their economy. It's really a combination of both and what's being executed, right? I also think that if people can go another route where they offer just an application, that the application is a simple application that it's not nothing we haven't seen before. For example, I don't know, a mental health app. I'd say in that situation the technology is there, but what's the point of this NFT? I mean, I could just go to an application that's already up and running and just pay, $50 a month for their subscription, right? So I think that it's really the NFTs, these NFT collections are going to have to offer both, but make it make sense where, owning the NFTs actually, well, there are benefits to this. And I think that, so far the biggest things that I've seen utility so far is the B2B aspect, where if you own this NFT, you'll gain full intellectual property rights and you could make money by holding this NFT. So I found that, that's what interests me the most. And even if somebody, for example, did create that, to continue our example of the mental health app, perhaps they integrated into their system, okay, if you own our NFT, you'll have the ability to sell memberships, 10 memberships a month. And this is a way to create passive income while holding the NFT. That would serve beneficial. So it really is, I'm curious to see the creativity, not only technologically, but what are you going to give, what are you going to give these NFT holders, and I think these guys can get creative. It's just all about how they execute and if they're smart enough,
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting. That's a great example. The thing is, we've just never seen any company in history do anything like that, where they actually give ways for the owners or holders to passively profit from, something like this. Again, traditionally, that's a dividend, but here, that it's something that's never been done before. And usually, if the buyers, the people who are buying in most projects, not all, but most, they are the end product. Them purchasing, they think that there's another product, but they are the product. And that's usually, it's like the old saying, if you're not paying for the product, you are the product. In NFTs, it's like reversed. Whereas with a lot of stuff, you can enjoy it without owning it. You can enjoy you can get all the benefits of the community without owning it.
Oh yeah.
In most cases, right? And even when you do, obviously, I think the IP aspect is interesting, but if it's a 10,000, item project, then you're now competing with 9,999 other people plus the brand in trying to market the intellectual property. It's like, in that situation, it's a little reminiscent of like Andrew Tate's model, where it's like you just get all your people to post the same video of you, and then they go out and try to market back to the same thing. It hits too many similarities on that front for me, where I think, the real value is, let me use Gary as a great example. He put on a conference. I was there, I spoke at it, VCon. It was friggin' amazing. It was amazing. And I think those tickets, which you got for free from owning the Series 1 VFriend, which he made a long time before, it was the first large scale execution that I had ever seen where thousands of people were happy.
Yeah.
That was impressive.
So I think that I agree. That's impressive. But at the same time, I don't think that it's revolutionary. And not to hit against, VFriends and Gary Vee. I think that at one point, if I'm not mistaken, VFriends were selling for well over $70,000. Am I correct with that?
I think around there, yeah.
Yeah. So, I've been to events like Coachella. I've been to exciting events, and I'll tell you that, Coachella is a magnificent event. Obviously different than VCon, but you could pay $300 to go to an incredible event. And I think that, to answer to your point of you're competing with an additional 9,999 different NFT holders. I think that it's true, but at the same time you're at an advantage, and the reason why is because you naturally are grabbing the world's attention just by having it as your PFP. If you're relatively smart enough, in terms of marketing or communicating to the world, and showing that you're unique, you could gain not only a following, but you could stand out from the crowd with a single purchase. And I think that that's what really sets the Bored Apes, the Bored Ape Yacht Club apart from anybody else, is that I don't know if you've seen Kingship. There are bands being formed around just apes. And they're taking the individual skill set that they have, which is rapping or singing or whatever it is, and using their ape to leverage the attention.
Right.
And I think that's where that's where it really stands out. And then some people, they don't necessarily have any skill set, but they always had this dream of perhaps creating a marijuana company, and now
Right.
they have the packaging that's grabbing attention. And I think that's really where it comes from. Is like, okay, so yeah, you're still competing with a large pool of people, but at the same time, you've managed, with a single purchase, you've managed to put yourself 10 steps ahead, which is
Right.
incredible. I mean, it's almost like pay to win in the real world. It's crazy, but yeah, that's how I really see it in terms of IP. And VCon was incredible. There's no doubt in my mind about that. But he definitely does have to, in my opinion, if I'm not mistaken, a simple vFriend or V1 will only give you 3 years of tickets, and then was it, if somebody bought it at $70,000, for example, was it worth 3 years of tickets?
Right.
Considering how,
No, it's a great point. I think there are, a few things there. I agree. I think, while it's the secondary market that sets those super high prices, it is still the business's responsibility, if you have royalties and if you're getting that money in, to provide that level of value. So our 3 conferences, or our 3 conferences plus a VF2 and a VF3 plus whatever else the heck else there is that worth that? That's his job to justify that for people.
Yeah.
And that's a very difficult task, but that's the game. On the Bored Ape front, that's a very interesting point. And I definitely think it plays to the advantage of intelligent people more than like just people who thought they could passively profit off of this thing. That's a very active thing. So it takes a lot of personal work, but it's true. I've seen the stats on Twitter. It's like people literally get more engagement when they have certain profile pictures of these projects, because there is an emotional attachment. Like, I can use Doodles as an example. They just raised a bunch of money at a $700 million valuation. I went to their activation at South by Southwest, and it was freaking amazing. And I don't own a Doodle. I've never owned a Doodle. I've never thought about buying a Doodle, but I still felt I went with my girlfriend. We had a great time. It was fun. And now I feel some sort of attachment to this brand, and I don't even own one. And I think that says something, because usually that's not, but that means they're doing something really, really right. And yeah, everybody loves to talk about how their project's going to be the next Disney and Mickey Mouse and stuff. But like, you got to make people who don't own it feel like they care about it in some way. And I think Doodles are right up there with the best examples I can think of in doing that. So the investment makes perfect sense to me. $700 million valuation is wild. But, good for them, man. I'm excited to see how it plays out. And I can definitely see, use cases like you were giving in terms of leveraging it for your already existing brand. I think the nightclub example made a lot of sense, right? So a nightclub pays, I guess now, 120,000 USD for a ape. They put it on certain things, and it attracts those people to that club. There's probably an ROI there, a monetary ROI with very little effort, because they have the pre-existing, sort of business model set up that would be pretty perfect for that NFT. So in a lot of cases, maybe that is a bigger part of it, but it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. But obviously, you got to know yourself and have skills, it seems like, to make it work at this point, or to justify those sorts of IP plays.
Yeah, you definitely. I mean, there are 2 aspects of it, right? There's the business side, where you don't necessarily have to become famous on Twitter or anything like that. But if you're relatively good at business, you could probably license out your ape and make some cash. But then there's the side of, okay, you've managed to stay anonymous, you're famous on Twitter now, and you don't show your face. But similar to a celebrity who does show their face, who would, put their ape in like their face in commercials, or put their face on like a Coca-Cola bottle, for example. You could put your ape on a I don't know, a vape pen, right? Like you could, I don't know. It's like, the way that I like to think of it is like breaking the 4th wall, where you have, imagine if Peter Griffin was owned by an individual, and Peter Griffin that individual had the ability to brand Peter Griffin on different products. I think that if people, as an internet character, as not, you know, a cartoon character, but as an internet character, can you leverage your internet virtual character and branch out with that, you know, via Twitter or via, you know, X, Y, and Z? That's impressive. You know, that's really what, in my opinion, is the beginning of the metaverse. Is, wow, we're looking at, obviously there's a human brain behind these celebrities or these ape characters, but what's interesting is that their face is not, they're not being recognized by a face, they're being recognized by a virtual ape, and they're creating a cartoon famous character on the internet. And that's like why I say it's like breaking the fourth wall, because of that. And I think that that's what's really interesting, and that's like this new brand. It's crazy. That's why, you know, you mentioned Disney, you mentioned community, you mentioned that the community is the product, right? That the people are the product. And I feel that, you know, that it's spot on, because we've come to a new point where brands allow their community to participate in a new way where they were never able to participate before, and it's created a new type of cult. You know, it's incredible. It's all a cult.
Yeah,
just yeah,
definitely.
Yeah.
I'm excited to see how, you know, a lot of these big projects play out, though. I'm rooting for all of them. Like, I can't think of a big project that I'm not rooting for. Like, I want to see them do things that haven't been done and evolve. What do you think the difference between an ape and somebody like Lil Miquela is, for example? You know, the AI person, I guess, who's now taking brand deals from real creators. That's like the big headline the media is running with. Yeah. From, you know, is there any difference between an NFT and her?
So I'd say that the real difference between her and is that she's designed by a whole team, right? And I think that they also took a different approach where she exists within the real world, which is kind of unsettling to somebody. You know, I think that with these NFTs, I think it's pretty much known that they're not supposed to ploy as a real human being. I mean, anyone in the right mind can know that that's fake when they see it in 3D or when they know, you know. So I think that that's the difference over here, is that, you know, the Lil Miquela team, they took the approach of, okay, we're gonna like make an influencer who, you know, by design, we're gonna reap the benefits of what an influencer gets benefit, you know, and we're gonna be able to control this girl the way that we would want to control the perfect influencer. And I think that it has its pros, it has its cons, obviously. You know, being somebody who's an influencer myself, I could see why a company would want to design me. They would want to design the perfect influencer, you know?
Yeah,
no emotions.
Can't get canceled, easy to deal with.
Can't get canceled.
They get 100% of the money. Yeah.
100% of the money. Yeah. So like, but at the same time, I don't see the value in, you know, the metaverse aspect of things. It's like, okay, that's like you're going this world you're going like this real world influencer. What about the idea behind, you know, this character potentially getting a cameo in a cartoon one day? Lil Miquela can't show up in like Family Guy, but if so,
she can.
Not as, I mean, the thing about her is that she can, but she looks real, you know, like, so like,
but they have, like, you see like Tom Brady in Family Guy, so it would just be redesigned to fit the Family Guy design.
Yeah, so that's the way that I see it. Although it wouldn't show up. It would show up almost as like a mockery rather than an actual.
Probably.
Like, you know, when Tom Brady, it would show up as a mockery. In the case of like a Bored Ape, the actual voice character of that Bored Ape or whatever it is, he could show up and, you know, to the Family Guy setting, and he could, like I mentioned, he's breaking the fourth wall. He will actually be a character in an episode. In addition to that,
he could be pretty unchanged too.
100% unchanged, and I think that it's a different strategy. Also, way more harder to accomplish, just because you need to have, you know, 3D artists doing everything, creating new clothing assets, etc. Whereas with the Bored Ape, you know, it's an IP, an individual. It's the same clothing. It's got its own look. It's not like this human character. It's like similar to like these cartoon characters. You know, Stewie always wears the same clothing. He's never going to change his clothing. Why? Because
SpongeBob has not changed one time in his life.
No, SpongeBob has not changed, and that's a Bored Ape. If you want a Bored Ape, he's not going to change once in his life. You know what I mean? That's the whole idea. So
right,
she's different. It's a very different approach, you know. Yeah.
It's interesting. Yeah, I'm excited I want to see how both play out.
Mhm.
Celebrities and NFTs. It's a topic I wanted to talk about. At the beginning, I guess in early 2021, not that many celebrities were in it before then. And summer 2021, when everything was going crazy, everything was at an all-time high. There were articles of like hamsters that were making more money than like the S&P 500. And obviously those times have changed. But now when most celebrities are launching NFTs, it's like frowned upon and
Yeah.
they don't sell out and people look down on it. Whereas a year ago, it was celebrated that anybody wanted to do anything. What changed?
It's a great question. I think that what really changed is the fact that, you know, the the community became smarter. They've come to realize that it's not necessarily about the name that comes and joins or is launching something. It's more about these are actual tech products, and I don't care. If you're not qualified to launch a tech product, why should I trust you?
Right.
Um, yeah, just because you have the ability to communicate the product, like typically somebody, if Kanye is doing a collaboration with, I mean, Kanye's on a different playing field, but if a celebrity, who's a YouTuber, for example, Mr. Beast decides to launch a burger company, obviously I could imagine that Mr. Beast will have the ability to launch this burger franchise because of his name, but at the same time, he made strategic partnerships in order to get that done. He had a lot of partners in line that knew how to manufacture these burgers, and he didn't do that all by himself. Let's just say that. And I think
Mhm.
that a lot of these celebrities were approached by a single individual who said, "Hey, I have an artist. There's so much money to be made here." They jumped the gun. They got excited. They didn't realize that actually there something needs to be promised with this,
Yeah,
and
there's
you need to
supposed to be a
build.
real business behind each of them.
Yeah, there's a business. It's not just, hey, like we're raising money to sell burgers. Give us money, and then like, oh, we have all this money. Like, see you later. It's there's actually, this is the future of business. Well, you gotta execute like this is the future of business and continue out on this business endeavor. So I think that's the community got smarter.
Yeah, also I'll
Yeah,
add too with any investment, if and that's what this stuff is. Everybody says it's art, but it's not. Nobody's buying it for art. It's just a flat out
fairly,
lie.
fairly. Yeah.
Um,
Mhm.
so by default, any investment that doesn't return on your investment is a failed investment. And
Mhm.
I think that is important to, state for, these celebrities having not looked at it that way and having looked at it
No.
as, oh, these people are buying art, but that just wasn't the reality.
No, I mean it's different if you like go on, like if you create a collection, a 10K or a 5K collection, a 15K collection, then you've established yourself as a coin. It's just a smaller scale coin, right? It's like you launch a cryptocurrency essentially, except instead of launching a million tokens, you've launched 15,000, right? You still have to build out on that business, but if you sold an NFT, a one of one NFT on like I don't know Foundation, for example, or Nifty Gateway, or just even OpenSea, then it's pretty much established as, hey, like I'm not expecting utility out of this thing. This is just an art piece. I bought it on my own, on my own will. It's probably risky. If a celebrity did it, it would be a little bit stranger, just because if the celebrity doesn't create artwork, it's a little cash
Right.
grabby. But if it's an artist, you can't expect the artist to, save the world with that sale. So I think that, yeah, it really depends. But yeah, I agree.
I think that's a great distinction. I hadn't thought of it like that. It's right. If there's a
Mhm.
one of one, I think it's common sense to not think that that is an investment and that it's
Mhm.
more artsy. And then I think on the
Mhm.
flip side, anybody that says it's art but then drop 10,000 of them is flat out trying to take your money.
Oh yeah,
I think that's
completely.
good. That's good for everybody to know. Companies that have done the best in NFTs. Would you put Nike at the top of that list in terms of
Oh yeah.
just being smart about the space and well educated and doing their work, or is there anybody else that even comes close?
Oh yeah, and it's so funny because I remember Adidas jumped into the space with strategic partnerships with correct influencers, and they got Bored Apes involved and everything, and I thought that they did it brilliantly. And then I realized that the behemoth Nike did it the smartest. Which, what did they do? They decided, hey, who's the leading metaverse clothing brand? Let's just buy them. And does it get any smarter than that? I
No, it doesn't.
No, it doesn't. If you have the money, why sit around and try to start from zero? You've already excelled, over the past, I don't know how many years they've been around, 40, 45, 50 plus years. Like, you don't need to reestablish yourself as the world evolves. You have the money, buy the best company, and go about it that way. And I think that that's what made them. It's so simple, but it's so genius. Like, that's the fault that I think Adidas did, is they tried to start from zero with the correct partnerships. It's like, why? Like, there's no need.
Partners don't really do anything anyways with how fast the space moves. That stuff is gone. Nobody even remembers like what I know they did something and it like went down or whatever. But I interviewed the Artifact guys at VCon. We did a panel together, and those guys are brilliant. I mean, they're passionate about it post acquisition, which you love to see. And they're just thinking about everything the right way. And obviously Nike got Takashi Murakami, who's probably the most famous living artist today. I think that's fair to say. So that's not bad for a clothing brand. And then they also have, all the best talent. I saw you just posted that they changed the attributes on one of the Clone X's to LeBron James crown, LeBron James beard. So it's going to be interesting to see how they integrate their talent, because they've got some big deals. They've got Michael Jordan in association. They've got, obviously LeBron, and the Kobe estate had re-signed. So they've got a lot of properties to play with here.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, I think that the clothing in general right now is in this strange point where I remember 2017, or even a little bit earlier, Supreme was the it clothing brand. I mean, they got purchased for well over $1 billion, if I'm not mistaken, as a little skate shop out of LA. I mean, New York. And I think that what's so interesting now is that Supreme is no longer the it clothing brand. There really isn't an it clothing brand right now, that's killing it on the aftermarket. So, that crown, that throne is up for the taking. And it's Artifact has set itself up as, hey, in one of our first clothing launches, we already have, like you mentioned, one of the biggest artists on the planet, in collaborations with us. Take us seriously. Like, I think that's what, I mean, now because of the blockchain, we have the ability to know how much is in supply. There's no it's not like I was in clothing before, so I know the tricks that clothing brands play. Oh, we sold out. Yeah, you sold out, but you only sold out, 50. This is not that exciting. There's not that many people that care about this clothing brand, or the latter, or you sold out 10,000. This is not that rare. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I mean, the opposite I meant.
Yeah. Or major companies that will say there's a limited supply, and then when they sell well, they'll just make more.
Exactly. So that's the whole idea, is like, the blockchain is like, I actually know how rare this shit is. I think that's what puts Nike and Artifact in its own, like, they won. I think that they are, in my opinion, the most ahead. I mean, obviously Bored Apes are ahead, but they're putting all their eggs in like relatively one basket with the metaverse. These guys have already established themselves like, we're succeeding, and we have a paved way to success right now. It's just like,
I think two things off of that. I totally agree. I think the idea of buying digitally and being able to get the physical too, which they're obviously doing with this new forging, is freaking genius. I mean, come on. It does, like, even if the hat's $150, nobody's going to think about it, because they think in ETH and they think in NFTs, and $150 for an NFT is nothing, but $150 for a hat in real life, nobody thinks about. Nike is super smart for being ahead of that, because that's going to look really good to their investors. On the metaverse point, I'm not really a believer. Like, I've been playing Minecraft since I was 12 years old, when the game was free. Minecraft has had a metaverse since then. Multiplayer, the whole world, for $12 or for free. And now the concept that I'm supposed to pay, $25,000 for a world in Minecraft. Come on. I mean, it's ridiculous. We're just changing the words and characters, and people are hype because they're financially incentivized and have the media platform to pump it up. On the flip side, there are things that I really do believe in that space. That's just not one of them.
So, I mean, listen, it's not a bad point. And I think that the difference between Minecraft, it was open source. Anybody could build on it. It wasn't as exclusive as, Other Side, for example. In addition to that, Other Side from what I understand, is going to exist within one server. So, they just released a video of 20,000 people. 20,000 characters in one server. Listen,
which is dope. It's great.
It's dope. The good thing about
objectively, it's awesome, but
it's awesome
for the price. I don't know. Maybe.
Of course. Yeah. So I think that what they're going to do naturally over time is that they're going to create this social hierarchy within the metaverse. And it's going to be, okay, they're going to have to set real estate, like rules for landowners. It's going to mimic the real world. If you're a landowner, you've got to potentially, do X, Y, and Z. If you're a Bored Ape, you're considered top of the hierarchy and you're this and this and this. And then they're going to say, if you want to come, perhaps play for free, you're going to have limitations. You're going to have this and that. And I think that that's eventually what's going to have to happen in order to make this make sense, because it can't just be only the wealthy play this game. It's just not going to happen. The wealthy people are busy working,
Also, is it like Louis Vuitton flexing your bag, or is it like owning land? Because if you own land, you can rent it out and make money and build houses on it, which you can then sell for more money. Or is it like buying an expensive bag to show that you can buy an expensive bag? I don't know.
I think that with the apes, it's like buying an expensive bag. Like, hey, I have.
That's what I thought too. Yeah.
Yeah, but with the land, I think that it's a business investment in the sense that you can. So is the ape in a sense, but the land is more like, okay, if I hire the correct people to develop a video game on my land, my video game could be paintballing, for example. I could create a paintballing field on my other side land. And, if you play on my other side land and you guys compete, you could win, I don't know, you could win ApeCoin on my land. I think that's if you play your cards correctly, like we talked about, if you're a good businessman, you can see some real, return on your investment,
Do you think that's realistic?
Similar, yeah.
Do you think building things on the individual plots, that's actually going to happen?
Yeah, so from what I understand, that's how they see this. They see it also happening that, individuals would have the ability to create clothing in other sides. So you can create a clothing store where I have established myself as on this land. I have a store and we have established ourselves as the best clothing brand in other side. And, it wasn't even managed by Yuga Labs. It was managed by an individual who owns land. They're receiving a cut, obviously. It's NFT land. This is how NFTs work. But that's the metaverse component. It's like, okay, everyone is in one server. There's no running away from me. Minecraft is not like that. People can make money, but you have to draw people to your server. Instead of your server, it's your land now, right? So it's got its similarities, but at the same time, it's the fact that everything is in one server, which makes it so different.
Right.
And yeah. And I mean, like live performances, for example, everyone in one server, 100,000 people could be in a crowd, and you could literally put a vest on, not a vest, a suit, a full bodysuit on whatever, like I was gonna say Tupac, a Snoop Dogg, and he could be performing live in other side with a crowd of 100,000 virtual people who are all, as opposed to other video games where it was kind of just like a concept. There was like, It was all happening at once, but it wasn't. There are different servers.
Right.
I think that's what, yeah.
So I guess the bet there is that they are going to be the Disney World and not like some other park, because like even Snoop Dogg, for example, he bought a bunch of land in another metaverse. He bought a bunch in Sandbox, and then there's also Decentraland, and then there's all these different metaverses. So you're also betting on which is going to be the one that people care about, I guess, too.
Oh yeah, I think that's the crazy thing about Yuga Labs is like Decentraland the resolution is just not, no shame against Decentraland, but it's just not it. And I think that a lot of artists try to shy away from it because they're like, my shit looks so good. I'm not going to make the resolution lower to fit Decentraland. So I think that Decentraland has a lot to improve. In terms of technology, they're there. They just have a lot to improve. Sandbox game is voxelated, like Minecraft is one of the most popular games of all time, but it only reaches a certain demographic, those who are okay with a voxelated game, like a pixelated looking game. And I think that it says a lot about the Sandbox. Like some people don't want to be playing with you know what I mean?
They want it to look like Fortnite.
Yes, and that's what Yuga Labs is. That's what Yuga Labs is creating is Fortnite.
Yeah, man. If they
metaverse, yeah. If
it plays out the way they think it's going to play out, I mean, it's really exciting. It's really exciting. I hope that it does. What do you hope the future of NFTs is? And how do we get to the point where everybody is benefiting from NFTs? We talked about the false concept of WAGMI before we came on this podcast, which I totally agree with. I think it's the most ridiculous concept because everybody can't win at everything. And although that was true at the very beginning because everybody was so early, over time, it proved to be damaging to many.
Yeah. So it's a great question. And I think that the way that people can benefit from this is, well, it's an entirely new era where the world is now giving, as human beings, society, we are now giving ourselves almost not fully, but almost completely over to the internet. And why is the concept of Web3? How has the internet evolved? Web 1, we were only able to Google search things or read things on Wikipedia. Web 2, social media, we were able to share things. Now it's come to the point with Web 3 where we're like, okay, I actually trust the computer, the internet more than I trust my bank account. So I'm going to give them, that's where my money's going to go. I actually have more fun on the internet. So I'm going to devote more time there. I'm going to purchase my money, things there and stuff like that, as opposed to buying physical things. So I think that the way that people can benefit from this is, just understanding the concept that the metaverse doesn't literally mean that the world is going to look like Ready Player One, but rather that, people now trust the internet and the computer a little bit more than they should perhaps, but they trust it more than they trust individuals. And how do I leverage my personal business, or how do I transform my personal business to fit that business model, this shift in the world's thought, right? So, perhaps it's recognizing that, Bitcoin and Ethereum is actually not a scam, and that maybe I should start accepting for my local liquor store Bitcoin. Or perhaps it's understanding that, if I have a clothing brand that maybe somebody would perhaps want it, a digital chip, an NFC chip inside of their clothing to understand that it's authentic, if it's a certain different demographic. I think that, that's how the average business owner could benefit off of this. And then just as an individual, I would say, I think at this point, you should not be neglecting cryptocurrencies. It's pretty much established itself as legitimate. And if you're an investor and you're investing in stocks, open your eyes to crypto as well, because, when the next bull run comes, in my opinion, it's going to be gaming tokens, metaverse tokens. And you don't necessarily have to be somebody who plays video games, but why not benefit off these kids who do like to play video games? And, I think that it really is that's how I see the world benefiting of just recognizing that it's swallow the pill. People they trust the internet more than they should, but that's just the reality of life. It's where it's going,
I couldn't agree more. And, I think that's why conversations like these are so important, because that education and base level understanding is important. I hope it's taught in schools starting now. So, because it's undoubtedly the future that everybody's entering in. So why not be ahead of it? I mean, you want to be ahead of everything. Well, Kingz, we could talk for hours. You'll have to come back on, because I know there's a lot more we could talk about. But thank you so much for coming on. Where can people find you if they want to keep following?
At NFT Kingz with a Z on all platforms. And I hope you enjoy my content, which if you do come across it. And Buster, I really appreciate you just having me. I think this was an awesome conversation, very real. Like I mentioned, a lot of the conversations that I previously had were very much focused on the positive. It's nice to point out the nitty-gritty details of things and be a little realistic sometimes, So that's good.
It's important. My brother. Thank you.
Of course, I appreciate it.
All right, everybody. See you next time. Peace.